Hey good people, it's Ricky here for the Frugal Photographer, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the best value 50mm lenses for Canon. And specifically I'm going to be talking about using APS-C cameras, but if you're using full frame it's going to be the same because these are all full frame lenses. So we have before us the Nifty 50, the 50mm f1.8 by Canon. We have the 50mm f1.4 by Canon, and we have the Sigma 50mm f1.4 not art. This is the DG. It performs pretty similarly to the art, but it's cheaper, so for the frugal photographer this is a good buy. There is one that I was a little bit interested in that I don't have before us today, and that is the Yongnuo 50mm, and that is very cheap. However, this is the newest Canon Nifty 50. It's the STM version, and I got it for $80 in like new condition on eBay. So that means that the Yongnuo lens falls into this weird category where it's only for frugal photographers who don't want to buy used gear, and I think that's a very small niche. So personally I don't have a lot of interest in the Yongnuo lens. Again, this was $80 for the newest version. If you're willing to get the non-STM, then you could get it even cheaper. The STM is just a stepper motor that makes it better for video. But if you don't care about that, then, if you don't do video, then don't get the STM version, and you can get one of these for super cheap. And therefore, I don't think that the Yongnuo is a very interesting lens, and it's not a lens I think I would recommend to many people. Alright, so we're going to get to image quality in a little bit, but I want to just talk about the usability of these lenses, what it's like interacting with them. So the Canon 50mm f1.8 is very small. I've used Nikon's 50mm f1.8, they're equivalent to the Nifty 50, and I think it's a little bit larger, and I think it's certainly heavier. I'm impressed at how small and lightweight this lens is, and I really like that. As someone who wants to have a collection of small, lightweight primes, this lens is awesome. Now the Canon 50mm f1.4 is still surprisingly small and lightweight, especially considering its maximum aperture size. So maybe if you're a professional, this would be a great lens. Now on the other end of that spectrum is the Sigma 50mm f1.4. And I just want to show you the size of the front element of the Sigma versus, can I get in the light? This isn't working out super well. But the front element on the Sigma is just massive, and it weighs, I don't know, twice as much at least as the Canon 1.4. And I noticed I was shooting with it. I was rock climbing. I was trying to shoot one-handed, and it was so heavy that I was having to exert a lot of effort to keep the camera up, and you really feel it when it's on your camera body, just like when I have my camera just hanging on my sling. So my recommendation would be that yeah, this is a great lens. I think this is more of a studio photographer's lens, or maybe someone who doesn't want to take this hiking. Considering that the Canon 1.4 is a great lens that you can get at a similar price, and it's so much smaller and lighter, I think that for people like me who really value size and weight, that the Sigma is just a non-starter. It's too big. Now that being said, I really love that the Sigma comes with the lens hood. It is incredibly frustrating to me that basically every Canon lens does not come with a lens hood. I'm used to lenses coming with hoods, and so that's frustrating to me, moving to Canon having to buy all my lens hoods separately. But anyway, let's talk about the manual focus and how that works. The Nifty 50 is focused by wire, which is not great, but honestly I don't have a lot of intention of manually focusing this lens. And both the Canon 1.4 and the Sigma 1.4 have clutches on them, which I really like. So definitely these lenses are better in that regard. But that being said, I don't know that these are lenses that people are going to be manually focusing with much. And one thing to note too is that the Sigma has quite a short focus throw. I would say about 90 degrees, so not good for manually focusing, even though the clutch system is nice to being able to override the autofocus. Whereas the Canon lens has one of, I don't know, 120 degrees or something. It feels much nicer. I think it'd be much easier to manually focus with the Canon 1.4. So if you value that, this is definitely the lens for you. Now, let's talk about sharpness a little bit. And I hear people say all the time that the 50mm f1.8 is a mediocre lens. And I find this to be a strange statement because so when I went to do some research for what other people thought before I did this review, I heard a lot of people saying, this is a mediocre lens. The Canon and the Sigma are, the 1.4 from the Canon and the Sigma are significantly better. And then they would show pictures, side-by-side pictures, and the differences would be either negligible to my eye or nearly negligible, and people would be saying that, this is a significant difference.
Okay, so we are going to be doing a quick and dirty performance test here, looking at a fence in my parents' backyard. It's very exciting. And we're going to do 3 shots from the lenses, looking at the center of the lens and then looking at the corner of the lens. And only wide open, because if you're buying one of these lenses, you're probably caring a lot about wide open performance test, and what happens when you stop down is exactly what you'd expect. It's not very exciting. If you really want more in-depth technical analysis, you probably know where to get it. If you check out my website, I have a full write-up going more into detail, and that has full res files for all of the images that you see here. So make sure to check that out if you're interested. Here is the Canon f1.8 in the center, and that's what it looks like. And then we're going to go to the f1.4, and I'm sorry, but I screwed this up. I don't know why it's so much worse than the f1.8. It shouldn't be. There's a small chance it's a problem with the copy of the lens that I had, but almost certainly it's just that I'm an idiot and I found some way to screw it up. Not sure how I did, but I don't have the lens anymore, and I can't replicate the test. Sorry about that. Here is the Sigma in the center, and okay, so here's the 1.8 in the corner. This is the bottom right-hand corner. Here's the Canon f1.4, and now these are much more equivalent. Maybe I wasn't completely in the plane of focus or something, I'm not certain. But basically these lenses look comparable. I can't tell which is which. And then here's the Sigma, which other than the frame being a little bit different, because for some reason the frame of the Sigma it's different from the Canons, it looks the same. I can't tell a difference. Now I was surprised when I saw these results, even though I had read, as I mentioned before, people in discussion boards saying that they were really different and that you should upgrade from the Canon f1.8. But when I looked at their images, they looked the same to me. I couldn't tell a difference. And then I looked at these, and I spent some time really comparing these images, and I can't tell a difference. So I decided to check out DxO. And what I found there was really interesting. I'm going to show you this graph that I created from the scores from DxO. And basically what you'll see is that the difference between the Canon f1.8 the Canon f1.8 STM, and the Canon f1.4 are almost negligible. Like the scores that they get from DxO are the same. They have some slight differences, differences in chromatic aberration and vignetting and things like this. But their overall score is the same, meaning that their image quality overall is not very different to one another. The Canon f1.2 is slightly better than the f1.4 and the f1.8s, but not a lot, which is kind of depressing because it's a lot more money. You're looking at $1,000 for that. And then the Sigma f1.4 EX is the first lens that is more than a hair better than the other lenses. And then the Sigma f1.4 Art just blows the others out of the water. But what's kind of funny about this is let's look at a graph, kind of looking at value basically. So here in the bottom we have the price. This is the trending price on eBay. So you can find a lens going for this amount on eBay. You can probably find them cheaper, but this is the trending price for the used lenses on eBay. And then on the left we have them ranked by their DxO score. So again, the f1.8, 2, and STM are the best values, just an absolutely incredible value. And then the f1.4, maybe it's not a bad value, and especially you have that f1.4 aperture that people love. But to me, it's like, oh, the Sigma f1.4, at least, I don't know, you're paying more than the previous two lenses, but at least you're getting some performance for that money, right? And then if you look at the Sigma f1.4 Art, again, this is a lot of money, so this is someone who's much more serious about photography and probably having a lens of the specific focal length. But you can see that if you want the best prime lens, like that's the one, do that. But the Canon 50mm f1.2 is just hanging out there with being really expensive and not delivering all that much performance. Like obviously if you want f1.2, that's the only option that you have. But when you have such an excellent f1.4, you have to start asking yourself, do you need f1.2? So the f1.2 is this really niche market of people who don't value optical performance that much, but are happy to spend a lot of money on a lens in order to just get like the absolute most bokeh they possibly can. Which, yeah, I don't know how many people that is. So I'm going to have to say that my recommendations for the majority of photographers are the Canon 50mm f1.82 and the STM if you value that video autofocus. If not, I'm going to recommend for value the Canon 50mm f1.4, maybe the Sigma 50mm f1.4 EX, and if it's less of a value proposition and you just want the best you can get, for sure get the Sigma 50mm f1.4.